After 20 years in private sector, I was hired at a special district in 2004 as their CFO. I had zero investment experience. I felt really inadequate, felt it was my biggest weakness. But I was also hired on the first day of the fiscal year, and they had not prepared to implement something called GASB 34, which should have been done for the year just ended. That was the monumental shift in accounting and annual reporting, and their plan was to wait for the auditors to come in and tell them what to do. In other words, learning investments was not going to be my top priority. Can you relate? This session is for all of us who have no dedicated treasury staff, have already busy calendars, have to handle budget, accounting, payroll, debt. We spend a ton of time on every city council meeting, and there's a continuous stream of other department staff coming to our doors every day. Too many cities have their money only in a checking account and the local government investment pool. The LGIP in Washington state has an average maturity of 20 days, which is earning over 5% right now. But if you're invested heavily and rates drop, within 40 days, your interest revenue will drop too. This class is to teach you the baby steps that you can do, and you can do it on 20 minutes a month. Our goal is to show you a 10-step process you can follow to manage investments using 20 minutes per month. Our goal is also to provide respectable interest revenue over the long term throughout all kinds of ups and downs in the economy and financial cycles. We also want you to increase your credibility with your city. Your elected and your other department heads might not know what you do most of the time, but you start adding budgetable revenue, they remember that. And we also want to show you that if we can teach this to you in about an hour, you can teach it to your staff. And you're never alone. There are cities and districts near you with experience. Developing a network of like-minded colleagues is one of the most helpful things you can do. At conferences, you're looking for people who have three things: knowledgeable, experienced, and willingness to share. It's conference sessions like this back in 2006 in Palm Springs, California that made me want to make this my career, motivated by wanting to earn the respect of those I respect for having taught me. This session is set up like this. We're going to follow what we think are 10 basic steps. If you're looking for a roadmap of how to get started, this is it right here. We're going to explain each one, giving each step enough time so that if you review these slides later, I think that what we explain will allow this slide to jog your memory. There's a numbered title slide as we go, so you'll be able to feel that we're making progress throughout the list, and you'll know how far towards the end we are. Step one, just like when you do your budget at home, you don't keep all your money in checking. You decide how much you can put in savings, how much you can invest in the stock market or in CDs at your bank, maybe how much you keep in a money market variable rate checking account. So you already kind of know this stuff. So consider this. Let's say you're at home, you're wondering if you can buy a 5-year CD, and you've heard it would be a good idea to buy one every month. That way, when each one comes up for reinvestment, the whole total isn't subject to rates that might be up that month in the future. So you decide how much you will never touch for 5 years. Divide by 60 months and you go buy your CD, right? The key question is, how much will you never need to touch? That's the million-dollar question. How much can you invest? Well, not to worry, we have a 4-step plan. Start by taking inventory. Every month, the first of every month when I come in, I look at the previous day's balances. LGIP sends us a monthly statement on the first, so using month-end balances is simple. See how many months you can go back, because I want you to create a graph with the data. You need to know your city or your agency. You need to know which months property tax comes in, which months debt payments go out, what past spikes or dips were events specific to your agency. It might be really hard to know in the past what was one-time money. So let's just say that it's an important thing if you do know. Here's what your graph will look like. In July of 2021, I started my new job. We had 3 years of statements handy, so our graph looked like this. You can see a little bit of seasonality, but our property tax always comes in the month before our debt payments go out, so you don't see much seasonality. In case the graph isn't obvious, yellow is checking, green is LGIP, and blue is our investment portfolio. At the bottom of the graph, I also have those labeled safety, liquidity, and yield. Watch out for one-time money. Here are the 2 bumps up for ARPA cash coming in. What we want is the normal operations picture. You might exclude restricted cash accounts. You want your normal month-in, month-out cash flow. Exclude bond proceeds if you can, because those get spent down pretty quick and they'll throw off the trend. We left ARPA in. We're watching it as it gets spent down. We know we still have $10 million unspent, so that part of the green area for sure isn't investable. We started investing gradually. If you look at the blue bars, not subjecting ourselves 100% to the interest rates in the first month, we invested $1 million per week, $4 million per month. We gradually increased, reevaluated, reported to our finance committee, and gained confidence. This is what I would call a textbook trend graph. This could be you. Ignore the dollar amounts. The concept is the same. Your investments in blue are pretty much fixed, and they bump up from time to time because you will decide you've got too much liquidity with a high degree of certainty. So then you put a little more into your ladder. Your checking in yellow is fairly constant too. Ours is around $10 million. You need to know what you need in checking. That means the seasonality, any volatility is always in your LGIP, the green bars. That's where you want it. That's where all your thinking goes. Your decision is how much liquidity do we need? It might be high this month, but what is enough so that it will never ever get close to zero? We picked $20 million so as our target minimum liquidity for now. Ben Finkelstein made a great point in his book, The Politics of Public Fund Investing. I'll paraphrase it in terms of this graph. In government, there is very little reward for putting more into the blue. There's a very big penalty for putting too little in the yellow or green. The cost of bouncing a check or selling an investment at a loss is far worse than the benefit of a little bit more interest revenue. What do we mean by safety? Your first thought is that you never want to invest in something that goes bankrupt. That's credit risk. Don't buy anything lower than a AA credit rating or something like that, right? Well, I think of this as staying safely out of the news. I think it's also staying safely away from having to sell an investment at a loss and never getting a call from one of your public safety unions because your payroll checks bounced. So how much do you keep in your checking account? This is those yellow bars in that graph. We actually keep more these days because we have improved our investment interest revenue so much that we worry a lot less about bank fees. Don't tell our bank. So never bounce a check. We know we can draw out of LGIP next day, and we might rebalance about once a week. And many weeks, we don't move any cash. We always keep a healthy margin. This is one that you really need to err on the side of caution. You can never have too much safety, right? Then there's the other big bad problem we have to always avoid. Although everything we invest in is liquid and we can always sell it, we never ever want to have to sell an investment, a treasury or an agency or a corporate at a loss. And trust me, the only time you find you need it is when the market is down, and of course you're going to have to realize a loss. Always be prepared for surprises. We always kind of aim to keep checking safe, as we said, and that balance tends to not change much. Your investment portfolio is always going to stay about the same. It won't change much. When something matures, you reinvest. So our liquidity in our LGIP is where the ups and downs, the seasonal ebbs and flows go. You have to know your agency and be comfortable. We set our minimum at $20 million as our minimum, always in LGIP. So we look at our trend graph, subtract out any one-time money that will be spent, and that tells us how much we can invest. We're locking in rates for 5 years with each purchase, but actually we plan to perpetually invest, so it's permanent.
Step 1 was to decide how much you can invest, and step 2 is to check your brokerage balance. This step is just checking your demand deposit account at your safekeeper. In either an investment just matured and the cash is sitting there, or you move some money from LGIP. I know this can sound really dumb, but it's just like checking your bank balance before you actually buy that refrigerator. You check the bank to make sure your last paycheck really was deposited, right? That's all this is. We have money in 3 different places. You saw on our graph, green was LGIP, yellow was checking, and blue is our investments. And we transfer money from time to time between LGIP and checking. Then we wire it to our safekeeping bank. For us, checking is KeyBank and our custodial safekeeping is with US Bank. Our transfers between LGIP and checking are pretty infrequent. So before you call the broker to buy a treasury or an agency, you're just pulling up your brokerage cash account to make sure it's sitting there. I screenshot it and print it out. I'll include it later to document the circumstances that existed that supported making the investment. For now, let's put a little green check mark here to show that we checked our balance at US Bank. Don't forget to sweep your interest. When interest comes in, the money flows the other way too. Your safekeeper receives it, and they deposit your interest in your brokerage checking account. Cash is going to start building up if you don't sweep it from time to time. So, monthly or so, you will want to sweep the interest that came in and transfer it to your regular checking. That's an easy transfer and also an easy journal entry. So, when you call the broker, you're going to have a lot of confidence. And one thing you will know is the maturity date that you want. The dollar amount is going to be whatever amount you're laddering, and the biggest decision you made was how much you could invest. Splitting up that total is simple. How do you tell the broker the maturity date that you want? Here's how we do that. This is super simple. We had a 1 million maturity come in, so we're going to purchase a 1 million treasury or agency that's 5 years out. Because our liquidity ups and downs are in our LGIP, we don't do maturity matching. Today, we're in April 2024 and we're buying a maturity in April 2029. We don't care if it's the 1st or the 31st, and we're going to tell our brokers we want an April 2029 maturity. What we're doing here is mitigating reinvestment risk. If all of our investments are roughly spread across the calendar, so they mature about once per month, then every reinvestment is subject to the prevailing interest rates at different times. And we can't predict interest rates 3, 4, or 5 years in the future. No one expects us to be able to do that. What we're doing is smoothing our risk, and we're also smoothing our interest revenue. We buy only non-callables, also called bullets. And once issued, they stay on track to the target of their maturity date. What we're not open to is callable agencies. We've just filled the maturity slot, so we're not open to having a bond be called. We don't want the principal back and have to reinvest it unexpectedly. And think about it. When are bonds called? When rates go down and the issuer can refinance their debt at a lower rate. Yes, you can buy a 5-year callable bond and assume it will be called and treat it like a 1-year bullet or whatever, but we prefer certainty. Now, those of you who are sophisticated, if you have enough experience and you have multiple tiers of your portfolio and you want to buy callables, you might think this is too basic. Our budgeting is simpler, forecastable revenue is more certain, and calculating the average weighted maturity of the portfolio is simple. This is the textbook normal yield curve. And okay, we haven't seen normal yield curves in a while, but as you already know, under normal conditions, you can go into a bank and buy a CD and get a higher rate if you lock in your money for longer. That's the same principle for our investing. If we're buying a 5-year bullet every month, theoretically we're maximizing our yield. And our portfolio is just a collection of the best yields we could possibly reach every purchase date. So sometimes we're buying shorter, 3 years or 4 years, when rates are down, and we think they'll go up next year, but we're always buying in that green zone. Who's buying in the red zone, you ask? That's our local government investment pool. They have to be liquid, and they do a great job of it. And with an inverted yield curve, they look good temporarily, but when rates go down, our 4% rates are locked in for 5 years. Our average yield will be smoothed over a long time, and theirs will fall quickly. If you're heavily invested in a variable rate short-term investment, your interest will go down. So the takeaway here is that having taken care of safety and liquidity, our strategy is that over time, our portfolio represents the best yield we could get every purchase we make. Now, if you look at our portfolio today, it's a total of 65 million. We got to 59 million, and we can't buy an April 30th maturity today if it's only April 15th because we have a 5-year policy. So, as you'll see, we have a 6 million second ladder on top of our first ladder where we go out 1 year. For now, while rates are higher or shorter. The point to this graph is showing that you can be flexible every single month when you have a maturity. You have to decide what you think. Have a rationale, be disciplined, and stick to your plan. Theoretically, every month, if you suddenly had $1 million cash need, you always have a maturity maturing.
Before you call the broker, you're already going to have an idea where rates are. You're not completely in the dark, and you can, actually it's your responsibility, you can check the resources that anyone can check. The next 4 slides show you how. It's surprisingly easy and takes very little time. The first place is the Treasury's website itself. You click on the current yield curve rates. What you get is yesterday and every day before that. You can look back a week, a month, a year, and more. What you find, though, is a little bit of a trend in the last few days. This gives you a ballpark of where rates are today. If they change a lot, that news is in the headlines and you should know about it. Here's the 2, 3, and 5-year rates over the past 5 days, for example. You can see how much they changed, not that much. You could screenshot this, but what we do is we put these into a graph. If we're buying only a 5-year every month, we have no reason to track the 2-year or the 3-year. So really, only the black line is all I need here. And you see what's going on. It's sort of a gentle roller coaster. It's sort of an indicator of where rates are today. The reason we're doing 3 lines is because we're watching for when they cross and are no longer inverted. The black line should be above the red and the blue lines. But remember, we're diversifying our reinvestment risk. We only have $1 million at a time, subject to the prevailing rates this month. The best advice we know of is to make your plan and stick with it. Stay disciplined and don't time the market. It's hard to decide which day to purchase your investment. As you can see, there's very little way to predict where rates will be tomorrow. On any given day, if the rate ticked up a little from the previous day or down a little, that's no predictor of whether it will continue or reverse course. Brokers have what is called a Bloomberg terminal, and it has a lot of screens. This is not that. This is simply the Bloomberg website that gives recent rates. How recent? Usually about 20 minutes ago. Here, I've got the 2-year rate and the 5-year rate. I can plug them into that graph that I just showed you, and I can see how 20 minutes ago rates are trending compared to earlier this week. Screenshot this and print it out. You can attach it to your rationale later. Looking at the Treasury website and the Bloomberg website doesn't give you agency numbers, so you may have a broker that gives you a daily spreadsheet like this. This is a snapshot of agency bullets for various maturity dates. The most important columns here are the issuer, in case you have a reason to add or not add an issuer. Watch your limits. The maturity date to see if it's the month you want. The column that confirms you're looking at all non-callables. And then the last column, which is the yield to maturity. You're looking for one specific month, remember? So here's the 2-year, the 3-year, and the 5-year for March, which is when I grabbed this screenshot. Rates change by the minute, but you saw the yield curve trend. They don't change drastically. Before you call the broker, you just want a sense of where rates were for both treasuries and agencies this morning. Your broker will tell you exactly what they see in the moment, but you should have a sense before you call.
Next, we send out an email to 3 brokers, blind copying them the night before, saying, we're going to be making a purchase tomorrow at 9 a.m., so send us what you own, or what you see out there, and then tell them the month that you want. You get 3 emails back the next morning, and you pick who you're going to call. So now you're telling the brokers exactly what you want. We blind copy them and we tell them 3 things. The amount is going to be 1 million. We're looking for a treasury or an agency bullet, and we're looking for a maturity date of March 2029. What you're going to get is 3 responses that are within a few basis points of each other. We don't begrudge your brokers making their percentage. We just want it to be competitive. And once in a while, you get a broker that owns something in-house that the other 2 don't. If they all come in the same, we rotate to be fair. When you get the broker on the phone, you've already told them what you were looking for. You know how much you're putting into each maturity, and you've told them the month. You've also told them you're looking for a bullet, and you know the rate roughly, and they've emailed you what they see. Now it's simply time to pull the trigger and execute the purchase. When placing a 1 million buy order, you want to be very specific. It's very important to reiterate the date, the amount, the issuer, that it's a bullet, and repeat back to them the yield they offered you. You can commit with confidence. And you tell them, sounds great, go for it. And you just authorize them to execute a trade you're responsible for. They'll execute the purchase and tell you they'll email you the trade ticket as soon as they have it. They may ask you when you want to settle. Next day means your safekeeper, which is like escrow, receives the security and pays out your cash. But for a new issue, the settlement date may be a few days away, and they will tell you that.
The broker sends you your trade ticket within the hour, and it's important to get it to your custodial safekeeper. You need to give them some time to review the transaction and contact you with any questions. And the only questions are going to be if you typed something incorrectly, so you'll need time to fix it and resend. Here's the trade ticket. It's shown full screen here, and I'm going to make it smaller and show you where you pull info from and where it goes. You'll paste this into your Word document, and we'll walk through each of the fields. You must send your safekeeper your authorization to disperse funds and to receive a security. We use a Word document of our own design because I want ownership, my city's logo on it. I want to look like I know what I'm doing. Everything has to match exactly, and you have to be meticulous, but it's easy. This is yet another form that we're just tweaking last month's data, typing it in right off the trade ticket. The name of the broker comes from right here, and we put his cell phone number in case the custodian has problems with the settlement. The settlement date you get from here. The name of the issuer is here. The CUSIP, the unique identifying number of the specific security, is here. The exact maturity date is here. The original issue date of this security is here. The par value of the maturity is here. That's their protocol for typing 1 million. It's 1000 M. And the price that you paid goes here. And you also see it both in the cost of principal and in the price that you're paying, including accrued interest, goes here. You print it out, sign it, scan it, and then you email it to your custodial safekeeper. Do this promptly. It doesn't do anyone any good if you don't give your safekeeper a lot of time to type all the info in with time to exercise care. If you get one character wrong in the CUSIP, they'll email you back and make you correct it. Give yourself time. Here's what a settlement looks like. Your cash in your brokerage account, which you did check before calling, gets paid out, and your safekeeper receives the security on your behalf. The safekeeper acts just like an escrow agent. The time came and went for you to move money from LGIP or checking. You need to make sure your cash is sitting with your safekeeper. You did your safekeeping notification in a hurry. Your rationale document could be done more leisurely. However, we recommend that you've got all the papers on your desk, so do this before you go home today. You're going to go get the one you did last month, do a save as, and actually this is pretty simple. Yeah, now here's what ours looks like. It looks impressive if you're a city manager or a finance committee or something, but you and I both know we're just tweaking a handful of characters here and there from last month. So there's the description. In this case, we've numbered it. This is investment number 2024-082. It's this year's, and it's the 82nd one we've done in our program. This is a 5-year Federal Farm Credit Bank, face value $1 million, maturing January 18th, 2029, purchased at 99 and a quarter. That's a discount to yield 4.04. We give the settlement rate, the settlement date, the broker we used, and the safekeeper. And in this case, we took $1 million out of our LGIP. We reduced our LGIP position. We make a liquidity statement, and all this is reciting the balances in our checking and in our LGIP and in our brokerage at the end of the most recent last month, and then what the target balance is for each of those. We make a safety statement, and this is always either a purchase of a debt issue of a government-sponsored enterprise, or it's a debt issue of the government itself when we buy a treasury. We make a yield statement, and in this case, it's 4.04%. And then we compare it to the benchmark and also fill in the little table for what the comparable investments were available at the time and also what the LGIP's daily rate was. We make a callability statement. This one never changes. We don't buy anything except bullets. Then we make a diversification statement by issuer. This purchase puts the issuer at whatever percent of the total portfolio. And then we also make a diversification by maturity date statement. This is almost always true. Sometimes we do double up on a maturity date. And then we fill in a paragraph about what the yield curve was doing, what the Federal Reserve did recently. We sign it with two signatures, and this is an important thing. This is like an internal control. You never want to do anything yourself. You always have someone looking at your work, even if it's just to review the document to make sure that this document is correct. But we always have two people making the trade and making the decision. So we alluded to a spreadsheet, what you need where you needed that percent of portfolio number. What kind of finance people would we be without a spreadsheet? So here's our spreadsheet. We save as every single month, so we can always go back and find the conditions that we made a previous purchase in if we need a previous month. We delete a row at the top, and we for something that just matured, and we got a row at the bottom for the security that we just purchased. The important columns are the maturity month going down the left, the CUSIP number, the issuer, and the investment number. We just use the current year and add to that an incremental number. Investment number one was September 2021 when we started, and this is how many investments we've done. But it's just a unique internal identifier. You can do whatever you want. And guess what? Everything else comes off the trade ticket, and you've already typed everything once in a Word document, so you know you can get it in safely into Excel. You're on your own getting it right. See that column in blue? Every month, your safekeeper sends you a statement, and you do need to enter the current market value for every security. It really doesn't matter until December when you need this for your ACFR and your market value journal entry. As you'd expect, once your spreadsheet is populated and updated, you have your own database from which you can produce your own graphs for your monthly reporting. There's the obligatory pie chart graph that shows your diversification by issuer. The bar graph is unique. That one shows the yield of every security by maturity date. The blue bars have to average those two securities that both mature in the same month. The two line graphs at the bottom compare the yield of the portfolio against the benchmark in red and the state pool. And the last line graph shows the average maturity of the city portfolio against the average maturity of the state pool.
The journal entry when you receive interest isn't tough. Debit to cash, credit to revenue. But how hard is the journal entry for the purchase? Let's go back to the trade ticket that we looked at previously. Down there at the bottom, there was some accrued interest we haven't talked about yet. So we know exactly what our credit to cash is. That's an easy journal entry. The accrued interest is a debit to revenue because at the next 6-month coupon payment, you'll get a full 6 months of interest revenue. And that needs to be netted against the interest revenue earned by whoever held the security before you that earned it. The difference is your principal costs. That's pretty simple. And why is this not an even 1 million, you ask? That is because we buy this at a discount or a premium. You'll eventually get your par value at maturity. And the difference in journal entry is in investment revenue, either a debit or credit, when you take this off your books at cost. And you'll recognize that amount then. And every year at ACFR preparation, you mark to market anyway on a reversing entry. So every year's accretion or amortization gets recognized automatically. This is a simple journal entry. Don't make it more complicated than that. We're going to kind of repeat that here. You could debit your investment at 1 million and credit the discount, but it goes to the exact same account number, so just net them. Same thing for premium, just going the other way. And every year, your mark-to-market accrual on your investment is going to adjust for your ACFR. And the accrued interest is a debit to revenue, so that when you receive the 6-month interest coupon payment in cash, your net is the actual amount you earned. We thought this was worth typing into a slide, so if you're just looking at the slide deck, the explanation is actually typed out.
So congratulations, we're on step 10. Every month you're going to report to someone, either a finance committee or city council. Why? It's the In the state of Washington, here's a snapshot of our actual state statute and our investment policy that says by policy, we make a monthly report. We report to our city council through a finance committee. We've seen investment policies that say at least quarterly, so there's agencies that don't know this statute and should update their policy. We think it's important to conform to the state statute and the policy because most of us only use our investment policy to look at. Here's a couple of pages out of our monthly report. We think it's important to use graphs because otherwise you're just giving your reader a dense wall of text or a dense wall of numbers. And for graphs to be effective and useful, they really do need to convey something simply that helps non-financial people understand. Remember, we're doing this on 20 minutes a month. We all know that this report is exactly the same every month. We just paste in from our spreadsheet the table and all the graphs, and that just leaves a few numbers to change in the text paragraphs. There's an advantage for the elected folks on our finance committee, though. They're familiar with these due to repetition and reinforcement. US Bank is our safekeeper, and while we could just use a PDF of their full safekeeping report, we choose to paste in images of their summary page and the holdings pages later. We type in the activities by hand, that's those bullets on the lower left. In this case, we list the maturities and the purchases as bullet points rather than making someone read the safekeeping pages. The graphs on the right become self-explanatory. That's the diversification by maturity date and by issuer. We do paste in every page of our holdings, but you get the idea here. And at the very end of the report, we paste in all the signed rationales for every purchase that we made during the month. We think this adds a lot of credibility in a monthly finance package. Plus, it gives us transparency. In order to do this on 20 minutes a month, you really should update your investment policy first. Go to WPTA's website, grab both the model policy and the certification checklist. The checklist isn't just for reviewers, it guides you through updating your policy for items you're missing, and it might make you think through some things. We think setting up custodial safekeeping is a hurdle to getting started investing, but don't let it be. You already work with banks. This just needs to be your area of expertise. We hope you've explained every single step required to manage your portfolio in 20 minutes a month. If you do this every month, you will improve your credibility because you will speak to your city's investment revenue with confidence every month when you do your reporting. And look how simple this was to teach you. You can teach this to others on your team, and we really hope that you do. Here's that checklist of 10 steps. This is exactly what we just walked through step by step. At the beginning of the presentation, some of these might have been completely unfamiliar, but now you've seen the details of each step. Fear keeps some people from investing. It seems unfamiliar, or it must be risky. The truth is, everything we walked through reduces risk. You diversify by maturity date, that smooths your reinvestment risk. By investing in treasuries and agencies, your money is actually safer than if it's in a bank where FDIC limits are $250,000 and you're relying on something else for safety. We as finance staff handle what others are afraid of. They might be afraid of auditors or talking to brokers or bankers, but we're not. That's where some of our value comes from. And you serve your citizens and you serve your internal departments that could use a little more spendable revenue in the agency's budget. Investment revenue is the one revenue source that you and only you can create. Thank you for listening. Contact us if you'd like us to share any of the materials we use. We're happy to. And please give feedback to the WPTA conference organizers. They really don't teach this anywhere. We learn it on the job from each other. We benefit from others sharing with us, and we all stand on the shoulders of those who are willing to teach us.